Laugh 10. Camp Scamps. The story starts out with Hilda somehow thinking that Sabrina is fortunate to be working as a counselor at a camp for witches. And she envies Sabrina. You'd think she'd realize it'd be a miserable job. Since there's a story late in the comic where Sabrina becomes a camp counselor for witch girls, and it doesn't end with her quitting, I have to wonder if this is a sequel to it. But nope, it's not. Because she tells the girls what her name is. Both stories involving this plot have her have a miserable experience. So why on earth does she try this kind of job a second time? The girls want to do karate or dressing up like a ninja. It's just not creative or believable to have them be this way just because they're witches. I guess it's a camp for troublemaking children. Sabrina wants them to stick to arts and crafts, so she ends up dangling on a large mural. I guess just for telling them what to do. She's out of it in the next panel and thankfully stands up to them. That'll be enough of this outrageous behavior. She wants to go for a hike around camp, and they do. The girls litter, and out of complete nowhere, a park ranger immediately shows up to yell at them. It's so much more likely that he'd be anywhere else in the forest. He asks sarcastically if all of the wrappers just fell out of a candy tree, and someone uses magic to make a candy tree. So he thinks the sun must be clouding his mind. Inconveniently, he walks away from them instead of bothering them any further. Maybe that was also part of the spell. I can't understand why there's a witch camp on Earth around mortals instead of in the other realm. Sabrina once again isn't afraid to be assertive, telling them to clean up all the wrappers. I don't see them do that, so whatever. Someone rides by on a bike and says, "Look at the brats with those pointy little hats," because the writer wants conflict. To be fair, they are brats. So I don't know why the girl wants to make him pay, because if they're being evil because Della encourages all of the witches to be that way, then they take brat as a compliment because they want to be that way. Sabrina tells her that she doesn't want anyone zapping their tires and giving them flats. Why did she just immediately assume that's what she's gonna do when she could do anything to them? The girl zaps their tires away. At least I can understand why the girls are targeting these people. They antagonize them. And this guy especially deserved it because he called them brats without knowing that they actually were just because they were kids. Since she's the main character, and the girls have no personality beyond being troublemakers, it's a bit annoying how powerless Sabrina is. I wish it was explained at the start that she's not allowed to take away their powers for the duration of the camp trip. I assume that has to be the case. But it's such a stupid rule because it's clearly needed for the girls to behave, for the counselors to get anything done. I guess it's also against the rules for Sabrina to brainwash the girls into being well behaved. She says they're gonna practice first aid, so she gets tied up with bandages. And the camp director fires her for losing control of the kids. And the story ends with her saying she was lucky. So that's a happy ending, not a sad one because she isn't sad at not getting paid. Still, what did she think was gonna happen? Sabrina must have only said first aid because it's part of what she has to teach them as a camp counselor. There was no way she could have avoided this because she didn't anticipate it. She could have floated over their heads, but they'd still zap the bandages to her. How does any camp counselor last more than a day here then? The camp would have and should have immediately gone out of business. I'd have liked to see the camp director have to deal with this. So this story wasn't as annoying as I thought it would be. Sure, I hated seeing Sabrina get tied up for no good reason just because she wanted to teach them a valuable skill like first aid. Though they could just heal with magic, so why is that even on the curriculum? Most of the girls' targets of magic abuse were mean to them first. The park ranger had every reason to get mad at them for littering and was just doing his job. But I can still understand them being upset from it and wanting to keep him from wanting to punish them. The guy on the bike deserved it for calling them brats without knowing they were brats. But these were just mean witches that show off why Dell is such an awful influence on witches, forcing them to be evil or lose their powers. Which doesn't make it okay that they're stereotypical. It's technically got a happy ending because Sabrina was fired from the job that she'd be too stubborn to give up. But I'm still annoyed at the person who fired her. I still don't think it was funny that she was tied up. It makes sense that witch girls could do that to someone, but it's so cartoonish and exaggerated just to give her a hard time. Archie 362. Someone complains at a sports stadium that he's out of hot dogs, and Sabrina decides to help the vendor with magic. I assume she'll fail because it's a comedy page. She gives the spirit world a pretty clear instruction, but somehow he gets dogs with embers above them instead, when she would have imagined hot dogs. At least Hilda feels sorry for her. Archie's Pals and Gals 202. Hilda tells Sabrina she's happy that she got the ultimate witch status symbol, a broom phone, even though a witch could send messages to people telepathically. I know we've seen this before. The reprint has this on the same page as something earlier, and as usual I prefer with darker blue coloration in her clothes. Betty and Veronica 15. Zelda and her family are flying around, and Zelda somehow expects me to believe they've been flying around for days thanks to Hilda, when they could all warp home at any time. I guess they're somehow all out of magic. Hilda wonders if they're questioning her navigation skills, and they're all brave enough to say yes because they're flying towards the Sphinx, when they're only trying to get home. I guess they flew far away from home for a witches' convention earlier. Laugh 11. Sabrina sees some spoiled brats tormenting a crying clown for being a bad clown who ruined a birthday party. I'm not given a reason to sympathize with them because I'm not told why they think that, so it's strawmanning them. The clown worries that nobody's ever gonna hire her again. That's worrying too much. It's unique to see a female clown. She gives her a pep talk and uses magic to give herself a clown costume right away, bravely saying that she'll go back in with her. She's naturally asked where she got it, and says that she just happened to have it with her, along with a baby elephant behind her. Sabrina gets sprayed with a water gun and tells the elephant to spray him. The clowns get hit with banana cream pies. Sabrina could have easily just brainwashed the kids into being polite right away and given the clown she was trying to cheer up a nice time. It was obvious immediately that they'd be hostile right away. Sabrina zaps up gifts that sent pies at their faces. While she is trying to right a wrong, Hilda and Della would be proud of her for using magic against children. Sabrina warns the clown about a bike heading towards her, and she jumps into the water. The kid laughs and says the special bike can do anything. Sabrina tells him that it can't do the stunts this broom can do. She tells him to hold on tight and makes it fly around. While Sabrina is being mean, she's also understandable, getting satisfying revenge against bad people that makes it seem like all is right with the world, instead of bad people getting away with things like usual. Sabrina's doing something bad, but she's still trying to do the right thing. So I like that she has the freedom to do this and not get punished by her stern, strict aunt every time, like in the animated series. Here, she's an escapist character who sends the kid into the pool. And it turns out it's all worth it, because she really did cheer the clown up. And at Star Employment Agency, a woman asks with a smile what they did at the birthday party, because the boy's mom is on the phone, and she's raving. If she was raving, wouldn't she know what they did? It turns out that the kids want them back every weekend because they made such a hit with them, even though they're clearly tormented and had no possible way to fight back. I get them wanting revenge, but they'd just be afraid. And it's not a happy ending because the two of them aren't happy about it. So it's not like Sabrina completely got away with bullying children. That's good, because I know what she should have done instead. This story was about Sabrina trying to cheer up a clown and taking revenge on the kids that hated her. I suppose it's good that she gets her comeuppance because the kids want them back. Probably for revenge later. But the kids would have just been terrified of them. Betty Me 172. Sabrina says that sometimes when she tries to zap up something, it comes out giant-sized. How did that happen by accident? Hilda explains that sometimes it happens occasionally when the moon is aligned with Venus. That still makes no sense, especially because it only happens sometimes. Why is Sabrina smiling about this? There's a story in the late 2000s comic that has its whole plot based around the fact that when Sabrina zaps stuff up, it comes out the wrong size because of a planetary alignment. So this page only serves to make that look uncreative. It's even by the same writer. Sabrina wants to zap up a birthday present for Ambrose on his doorstep. She tried to give him an electric shaver, and he doesn't recognize it as such. But he loves the power lawnmower he thinks she gave him. I love that there was still a happy ending. Little Archie Comics Digest 34. Sabrina's family are celebrating Christmas the way they typically do. Hilda thinks the skull decorations on the tree are pretty somehow, and she tells Zelda she did a good job on the Bat Wraith, and they decide to sing Christmas songs with scary aliens from the witch world to scare people. And for some reason, Sabrina says she loves singing with a group of friends, but it'd be out of character for her to be happy about scaring people. She'd sing in the witch world, or with her friends, not with monsters we never saw her with before. I thought her aunts lived on Earth for centuries. When would she have met any of these monsters? I guess they meet them when going to do their taxes in the witch world, or buy potion ingredients. And then they had conversations with them and hit it off. Archie Giant Series 592. Hilda wonders if Sabrina's friend likes spending the night at her place where she could discover magic at any moment. Her friend runs away screaming, saying that there's lots of creepy crawly things, and they're in the fridge. There's no reason they'd be in the fridge just because it's a witch's fridge. That'd make it harder for the witches to get food from it. Archie Giant Series 594. Sabrina gets talked to for some reason by a magic wishing well. It must have been created by another witch, which is pretty unlikely on Earth. She wishes for a chocolate ice cream cone and throws in a coin when she could easily use magic to get one for free. It's amusing that she ends up with a really tiny ice cream cone, because she dropped in a penny. Why would the wishing well care how much money he got, when he's always mobile and can't spend money himself? That only makes sense if he had an AI somewhere in him that can get sent to a robot to spend the money. After this was Betty's Diary 23, which has a confusing comedy page I already reviewed in Sabrina's Holiday Spectacular 3. Jokehead 10. Sabrina talks as if the idea that witches are constantly flying on brooms is just a misconception, and expects me to believe she never does that, when she's done so plenty of times. I get where this is coming from though, since the early 70s comic revealed that the younger witches started flying on vacuums and motorcycles, which makes sense because it's easier to stay on them. She hears the phone ring and flies through the conveniently open window to answer her phone instead of warping to it. I guess because this costs less magic. She could have flown herself without using the broom if she didn't want to contradict herself. Laugh 12. Esmeralda complains about what she's been smelling near the subway around Christmas time and doesn't explain what she actually smelled. Sabrina wants to go shopping for Hilda's gift. Della flies over Manhattan hating Christmas for unrealistic reasons and wants to put an end to the holiday, somehow thinking she could do that just by magically putting everyone in New York to sleep for 2 days. This would kill a lot of people because people would fall asleep driving or doing surgery. Oh, thank goodness. Instead of people literally falling asleep, they're just frozen in time. Conveniently, only the mortals were frozen. Sabrina wonders if Esmeralda did this, and somehow believes her when she says she didn't. So she wonders what witch is responsible and wants to try to find out who it is. She's surprised that everyone outside is petrified too. And they see a message on a building saying Della was here. Sabrina wants to undo the spell, and Esmeralda says that Della's so powerful, which tries to provide some justification for why Sabrina can't just point and instantly undo the spell by imagining that people are moving again. She just has her spell locked. She says that if she conjures the spell from a high enough place, it should drift down on everyone. That's impressively smart of her. Realistically, Esmeralda says it's cold up on the roof of the World Trade Center tower. Was Riverdale always supposed to be set in New York? If not, why are they in New York? Sabrina says a spell and thinks nothing happened. And it turns out the spell created a magical snowstorm, and that brings everyone back to normal. Sabrina wouldn't have been surprised by this. She would have imagined the snowstorm to make it show up. This story was about Sabrina babysitting Esmeralda while Christmas shopping. Unfortunately, instead of her cousin being a bother, it's only taken advantage of in a brief moment where she's accused of freezing everyone in the city in time, but somehow she believes her that she didn't do it, when she should have just not believed her, and only got clued in when she wasn't powerful enough to undo the spell. As usual, Della was totally unrealistic as a person, but it was impressive that Sabrina immediately figured out she could undo the spell by casting it from a high place to save magic. Because the magic would fall down on everyone instead of having to teleport to literally everyone. It'd still have to teleport to the people inside of buildings though. Betty and Veronica 17. A giant human knocks on Sabrina's door with his finger, looking refreshingly harmless with his expression. He says he left his sunglasses at Hilda's last party, so there's a reason why he's here on Earth. Good. Hilda says she found a pair in the backyard and somehow asks Sabrina to ask the giant if he can identify them, when it's immediately obvious they're his because they're huge. Maybe she just said this sarcastically as a joke. Or she had multiple giants at her party. Betting me 173. Hilda complains that all of the new TV shows are aimed at people over 30 years old. And Zelda complains that they're neglecting her age group. Ambrose tells Sabrina that they're over 300 years old. Why don't they expect mortal shows to cater to their age group? Why don't they watch witch TV shows? Betty and Veronica 18. Sabrina finds a dollhouse in the attic, and Hilda says it was special because it had trapped doors and haunted rooms, which would only make sense if there were really tiny people inside it. It makes sense that magic would be used to make a dollhouse more entertaining for kids that can protect themselves with magic anyways. I assume the ghosts in the dollhouses can't escape the area around them, or that'd be really irresponsible. Life with Archie 271. Sabrina happily agrees to doing something to amuse Esmeralda, which is pretty nice of her, so she sits on a seesaw with her. I guess someone used magic to make it so that the seesaw thinks they weigh the same, because otherwise this wouldn't work. Sabrina pushes Esmeralda on the swing, who thinks it just doesn't seem right for some reason. Sabrina uses magic so that the swing is above a flying broom, and Esmeralda says it's perfect now. This was a confusingly wholesome story with Esmeralda in it. Another one of the stories where she's harmless to her.